Now, Stephanie Hopkins, who is Spookee on TikTok, friend of Darley's, friend of the family. She's actually a good person. She just doesn't have her facts straight. She put a TikTok post up that featured Barb Davis. And Barb Davis was saying that she never saw the pictures of the bruises and that they didn't go back and that they weren't marked as evidence and the jury didn't get to see the pictures. She did post that, and Barb Davis did say that. And I said to her, can you post where Barb Davis recanted that and backflashed on that? And, Spookee says, well, this isn't about Barb Davis. Well, it is if you're trying to make it, prove a point about the pictures, because what you're actually proving is that people backtrack in Darley's case quite a bit. Have a listen.
He says he wasn't shown all the evidence, and the evidence he wasn't shown was actually evidence he was shown.
When the prosecution gets on their high horse and said the pictures were right there, they sure were.
What?
Thousands of other things.
What'd you say?
And they made sure they were mixed in.
The murder of her 2 children. And then he told the jury the last thing each of these 2 children saw was their killer.
That's right.
Everything pointed to Darley. Nothing pointed to anyone else. And I had a hand in convincing a lot of people she did this. Sold over 200,000 books.
Barbara Davis' book had only been out for about a year when she received a call from a deep throat source within the district attorney's office, and that source said to her, you need to meet with me. There's some things you need to say.
And within about 20 minutes, I had tears running down my cheeks. I had written a book based on my reputation and my integrity, saying that this woman had killed her children.
Now, let's stop it right here. Because in that book, she writes about those bruises. And she writes about the pictures of those bruises. Keep in mind, she wrote that book before she met the family. She wrote that book. And in Precious Angels, she describes the pictures of the bruises and the bruises.
And I was staring at facts that she indeed had not.
After the publication of true crime writer Barbara Davis's scathing book, a secret source within the DA's office showed her evidence.
The secret source within the DA's office was Christopher Wayne Brown, who was a friend of hers, who was he was a magazine publisher. There was no one from the DA's office that did this.
That she'd never seen.
When I saw the photographs, this was a small police department, never handled a murder case like this, and the pictures were taken out of sequence. Major evidence was picked up and moved around because I saw them here in one picture, and, they were here in another, contradicting any.
Now, how is them taking a picture of the knife and them taking a picture of the counter after they bagged up the knife because it's physical evidence? How's that a problem?
Testimony of staging. I learned an hour before the silly string happened. They had a video showing the prayer vigil before the celebration.
And she's saying that she learned about this tape, after she spoke to someone in the DA. She said she didn't know about it anymore. But she also said she sat through the entire trial every day. Well, Greg Davis said in open court, that they could play that tape. The 14-hour-long surveillance tape. And Doug Mulder didn't want to. She's saying she just found out about it. She knew about it.
The jury never saw this solemn, appropriate celebration of the boys' lives.
Yeah, they never saw it because Doug Mulder wouldn't put it in after Greg Davis said, you can if you want. But Greg Davis knows that it didn't show what they said it shows. And so did Doug Mulder. That's why he didn't enter it.
I began to see other photographs. Her throat was cut, where her dominant hand wouldn't do it. Her left hand would have had to have done it. She had bruises up and down her arm, and the picture began to form in my mind. The horror of the injuries she had. If the jurors had seen it, it would have been a different outcome.
She said if the jurors had seen it, it would have been a different outcome.
But they didn't even look at the evidence. The last thing they did was play the silly string tape. And turned to Charlie Sanford, who was going, I don't want to do this. I don't think she's guilty. And said, now do you think she's guilty? And the freezing, tired, worn out Charlie Sanford finally said, okay.
Charlie Sanford was a juror at Darley's trial.
When you do something and it's right, after a while you settle. This never would settle. It never would leave me alone.
Like Barbara Davis, Charlie Sanford was shocked to learn about the surveillance tape and the photos of Darley's extensive wounds.
The photos that were sent back. These were sent back to the jury. Look, State's Exhibit 52B, marked and tagged 1897. Look at that.
A lot of evidence that we and the jury never did see. If I would have seen those pictures before, it would have made a lot of difference. What?
Not only did the pictures go back, they discussed the bruises at length in the testimony. There's other jurors that said, yes, they did come back. But they discussed the bruises in length. So where was this guy? Asleep? He's gone now. And I had the opportunity to speak with him on the phone. I did an interview with him. Charlie Sanford, he's passed away. But he was convicted, too, of cruelty to animals. So that doesn't, that doesn't really mean a lot. But, we could tell that the guy is a little bit slow. When I was interviewing, his wife was trying to help him out a little bit.
I thought.
He says he wasn't shown all the evidence, and the evidence he wasn't shown was actually evidence he was shown.
When the prosecution gets on their high horse and said the pictures were right there, they sure were, with thousands of other things.
What'd she just say, Stephanie Hopkins? They sure were.
And they made sure they were mixed in.
And they made sure they were all mixed in because they didn't want them to see them. They mixed them all up. We're going to send them back, but we don't want them to see them.
The jury was not going to sit through those pictures.
The jury was not going to sit through those pictures because they were tired and cold, and they weren't going to sit through those pictures. That's why Barb Davis makes a difference there, Spooky. You put up lies on your channel. Now, here is the lie that Spooky on TikTok, Stephanie Hopkins, she posted in defense of Darley. Listen closely.
The jury was not paying enough attention to the evidence that really mattered.
Such as photos of Darley's bruises, says defense attorney Stephen Loesch. State's photo evidence, 52 series.
She didn't hurt herself, that she threw her arms up like this to protect herself. That told me that she didn't do it.
Charlie Sanford says he never saw these pictures during the trial.
The black arms? Yeah, see, they didn't show us that in the trial. We didn't see that.
You see, that's impossible for me to believe.
Prosecutor Greg Davis.
Because, as you know, those photographs were introduced at the trial. They were available to all the jurors.
Is it possible, Charlie, that the only ones that you remember are those?
No, we didn't see those.
Something that is put into evidence simply means that it's marked and turned in. It never means the jury sees it.
Barbara Davis is a true crime writer whose book Precious Angels said Darley was the killer. She says she never saw the photos either.
So she says she didn't see those photos, right? So I did a little research, and I picked up my copy of Precious Angels, which I've read it 3 or 4 different times. And I looked, and in the photo section on page 184, you can see one of the photos that she didn't see before. You can see it. It's marked 52 series from the Rowlett Police Department 4 days later. Page 184 of Precious Angels is where her lie is. Liars. All of them.
It's a pretty damaging photograph in my eyes.
What does it say here?
It says to me she put up one hell of a fight with somebody. She didn't do that to herself.
These photos convinced Barbara Davis that Darley Routier was innocent.
I got it wrong. I believed it. I went along with the theory, and the more I found, the worse it got. And I'm thinking, how can this happen in our judicial system in America?
This jury was not paying enough attention to the evidence that really mattered.
Now, You can look in the book Precious Angels where she writes about those bruises. The bruises were being discussed in court. She changed her mind shortly after going on to the Lisa Gibbons show. And Cirilda turned in her chair and pointed right at her and said, "You could be sued for this." So that's why it matters, Spooky. Now, here's some of her comments on that video where she says that we lash out. All we do is lash out. I haven't lashed out at Danelle. She's lashed out at me. She said, "You excel at lashing out. We must have definition. Nobody's interested in y'all's same old bull. You are hysterical. The truth has a way of getting that thumb muscle. They will never take her case. They know she's guilty. Your words, dude. It happens a lot." Okay. The IP loses 43% of their cases. Let's see if she took some. Yep, she deleted some of them. No, she didn't. My dirty laundry won't. No, neither does Barb Davis, if she had any. We were talking about the drug raid on Barbara Davis's home in 1999, where she was convicted for possessing marijuana and GHB. Her son Troy was shot and killed by police as they entered the home. I did tell her the IP would never take her case. The Texas IP. Yeah, see, she doesn't understand what you say, right? I said, they have had the case for 4 years. Why would her sister be telling people to call the IP with any leads? Any leads. After 4 years, you think they would have something. They do, LOL. Brian, you know as well how long drawn out the legal proceedings are. I didn't say anything about legal proceedings. I said leads. I said leads. And you totally disregarded what I said. These kind of comments make my thumb block happy. I'm talking about the evidence they have. They wouldn't be asking for leads if they had evidence. Yeah, I think she took that comment off of there about Barb Davis. Nope, let me see. She put Barb Davis up as defense for Darley. So I said, "Can you tell us about the drug deal?" Blah, blah, blah. And then she says, "No, this isn't about Barbara by all means, blah, blah, blah." She's telling me she explained the same thing in the 48 hours clip that said that the pictures weren't there. I got this wrong. It wasn't in the last defense. She never answered it. So she wonders why it's important, because you're trying to stick up for Darley with it. That's why. Well, there's your answer. So why'd she backtrack, Spooky? Why'd she backtrack?